Okay. Purchase price, vacancy percentage, total gross income, and total expenses, annual expenses. Okay. Now, if you get your cap rate calculator on the phone, and everybody should have a cap rate calculator on the phone, right? It's going to look something like this. There's the 4 inputs: purchase price, gross rental income, vacancy rate. It's hard for me to read this way. And then operating expenses. That's it. Now, the one I like this one because like it's, on the bottom, it has the formulas. Okay. The formulas. Okay, so you can see like the gross operating income equals the gross rental income minus the vacancy. The gross operating, the net operating income equals the gross operating income minus the operating expenses. The cap rate equals the net operating expenses minus the purchase price. So it kind of brings you through the whole formula on how they get to the cap rate. So that's kind of like, that's why I like it. And it gives you an example, really, kind of is what it does. All right. It's called Cap Rate Calculator app. That's what it's called. Okay. So I have no idea what it's called. I've had this cap rate calculator app for probably 4 years on my phone now. So I don't even know if it's around. I don't know if it's still around or anything, I have no idea how that works, honestly. So anyways, but you just need to find a cap rate calculator that you have 4 inputs on. A couple of my students on Saturday, they had like easy cap rate calculator or something. That's what they pulled up, right? So it's like a little bit, it looks different than this, but essentially it's kind of the same thing, okay? And this is a very easy way for you to look at deals on if they're income producing properties. Now, if it's a mismanaged property, right, then you're not going to be able to tell the as is price, right? Because you don't know when you're driving for storage and you're like going to a storage facility, right? So for instance, we're driving around and like, oh, there's a storage facility. It's not on Google Maps. Let's go. And then I get stuck in the mud. And then like we go to the facility, and then what we do is we count the doors. Okay. We don't know, all right, if there's 10 by 10s or 10 by 20s or 5 by 10s or 12 by 4. We don't know anything, unless sometimes they have them kind of like on the signs, but a lot of times they don't really, because you don't know. But you do know how to calculate square footage. Right. So some of the storage facilities that we looked at, like now you need to get really good. And this is what I teach in the infill training day. So, when you come and hang out with me for the day, you're going to be able to visually see how I do this. But essentially, when you start looking at your facilities, actually looking at them, right, and not just like driving by and being like, oh, there's one, right, but actually pulling in and saying, okay, let me really kind of use my bubblegum brain to figure out what the total square footage of this facility is, right? You can do that. You can easily calculate what the value of that storage facility could be if it was 100% full, just by looking at it. All right. All right. So now typically on a storage facility, if it's a normal acre of land, right? So if it's like, L shaped or whatever, some weird shape, then most likely you're not going to be able to fit 100 units on an acre. But most of the time, storage facilities are like long, skinny lots, or maybe a square lot. Every once in a while, you get some random thing or something, right? But if you actually had a storage facility where the civil engineer was like, what's the best way for me to put storage facility on this thing? It's a square lot. Maybe I should just go like one next to each other, right? Just plan it out this way, right? Instead of being like, oh, let's throw a storage facility right in the middle and figure it out. We looked at one lot where it was like this big ass huge lot, like it could have been, I think it was at least 4 acres, let's say. And they just put like this one big storage facility like right in the middle of the lot. And then there was like hardly any space to put anything else. It was like the weirdest thing. I'm like, whoever the civil engineer is that did that and planned that out, along with the metal company was just like not thinking clearly. I'm not sure, right? Most of the time though, when you look at an acre lot, you're going to see like rows of storage facilities, right? And you know, on an acre, you can put 100 units. A half an acre is 50 units typically. And that's kind of how I guesstimate it. So this is quick and easy guesstimations, right? Quick and easy guesstimations. And so we were there looking at our facilities, and we know that. And then how do you know that how big the acres are? Guess what? You go to LandGlide. So now you can pull it up and be like, oh, this is 2.41 acres. On 2.41 acres, you should have like 250 units. And we looked at several facilities that are like 2 to 3 acres, and they have 200 to 300 units. Right? So now you have LandGlide to look that up, so you can just manually in your mind can think about it, right? But then also at the same time, you also can look at the buildings themselves, right? And you can say, okay, this one looks like a 10 by 10 and this one looks like a 10 by 10 total. That's like, a 20 by 10. These are like 20 feet long metal buildings, right? Or you can look at them, and some of them that we see and some of them that we looked at were like 40 feet long metal buildings, right? So then you're like, okay, well, this is a 20 by 10 and this is a 20 by 10, guesstimating. You don't know for sure. Maybe it's a 10 by 15 and a 5 by 10, but it's, essentially something like that. You can guesstimate by just kind of looking at your buildings, really looking at them and trying to see. And you can also count the doors. If you can get inside and drive around and count the doors, you can count them and say like, oh, there's 100 doors here. And it looks like those are 10 by 10s. So if it's 100 10 by 10s, you can guesstimate what the square footage is, 10,000 square feet, right? 76 10 by 10s is 7,600, square feet. And you have, let's say you have, 60 20 by 10s, right? So you can guesstimate that as well too. So you sit there and you can kind of guesstimate your square footage as well, just by looking at the facilities. Does that make sense? All right. So you're not going to get like super accurate, like, oh, in the due diligence period, or like when you're talking to the people, you can get like, the whole unit mix. But when you're driving for storage, or when you need to do a quick calculation, you can really figure that out, right? And so I had my students in every single facility that we found, I had them figure out what the cost of that facility could be if it was at 100% full. Just guesstimating, this facility could be worth this much money just by looking at it, knowing the acreage, knowing the doors, knowing the size of the buildings. This is how much you could possibly make, right?